There's this kid on the internet, a guy called Jeremy Schmidt. Yeah, he runs a woodworking channel and it does very well. It has over 100,000 subscribers. And this kid, right? He's young enough to be my son easily. I think he's like 17 or something like that. He looks it, at least. And if I had an age-appropriate daughter, he would be the dream boyfriend for her, as far as I'm concerned. You know, this kid is smart, hardworking, very industrious, very practical and pragmatic, decent, clean living. I mean, the kid's got it all. I mean, he is, as far as I'm concerned, the perfect boyfriend for my hypothetical teenage daughter. Now, from the point of view of my hypothetical teenage daughter, the kid is geeky, gawky. You know, he's a nerd. He's not that attractive. He's not hot, you know. She wouldn't think that he's a big deal. Yeah, but I, who know better, who can look at this kid and see what kind of a future he's going to have, I would say, you know, it doesn't matter if he's geeky or not as cool as your other friends. This kid is it, because he is. Because this kid, you see him now, young boy. In 20 years, 30 years, he is going to be very well established. He'll have a nice business or have a really great career flourishing. He'll be able to provide for his family, have as many kids as he and his wife want to have. He is, you know, a guy with a future. I mean, just looking at the kid, you know he's got a future, right? But of course, girls his age or appropriate for him, you know, what do they know? They don't know shit. Yeah, because they're too young. They're too young to know, right? But in our current environment, in this deregulated sexual marketplace that we're living in, girls will not look at him as a catch. They'll look at him as a dweeb, a loser, and when he is far from a loser. But that is the society we are currently living in. We are living in the deregulated sexual marketplace. Now, that sounds very sophisticated, but what does it mean? It's very simple. You see, currently, today, anybody can have sex with anybody they want, so long as 3 conditions are met. Now, those conditions are, number 1, that you actually fancy the person. Number 2, that both you and the person you're interested in are on the same side of the age of consent. That is, either you're both above the age of consent or you're both below the age of consent, because right now in our society, the people cannot cross the line of the age of consent, as it were. And the third condition is, of course, that the other person wants to have sex with you. I mean, wants to, you know, consent to having sex with you. Those are just the 3 conditions. There are no other rules or conditions to sleep with anybody today. This was not always the case. In the past, there was a lot of regulation of the sexual marketplace. Now, what does that mean? When you think of regulation, you think of government regulations, like rules and regulations dictated by Washington or some nonsense like that. And I don't mean that at all. I mean that a society, the society around people who wanted to have sex, imposed a lot of conditions. You couldn't just sleep with whomever you wanted, as you can today. You had to be able to satisfy certain conditions. For instance, 150 years ago, you both had to be married. That was the only possibility for having sex. Yeah? If you weren't married, you were expunged from society. Both of them, men and women. Okay? Because people always say that, oh, you know, women would be, you know, get a big A for adultery, as it were, sort of like the Scarlet Letter kind of thing, and the men would get away with a wink and a nod. No, 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 no. You read a little bit of history, you look at a little bit of social history, and a lot of very, very good social history has been done on this issue. And in the past, men and women were tightly regulated insofar as whom they could sleep with and whom they could not. And if you were not married and you were a man and you did sleep with people, with women, of course, it was assumed, that was, you know, that was grounds for social ostracism. All right? There was a lot of regulation on people's sexual desire, this regulation coming from the society around you. You couldn't sleep with whomever you wanted, all right? But now you can. Now, this sexual free-for-all, it sounds great. And it is great for some. For some, it's fantastic. But for the majority, it is a disaster. You see, you have to look at hypergamy, which is the natural desire of women to mate, have sex with, the males at the very top of the hierarchy. You see, because men's sexual desire is very simple. They desire the most attractive women. That's whom they desire. But they're willing to have sex with anything, practically. I mean, if we're rating women on a 1 to 10 scale, or 10 being the most attractive and 1 being the absolutely most horrid person imaginable. I mean, imagine like, I don't know, 500 pounds of lard with warts, you know, and some kind of weird disease in their genitalia that actually moves when you stare at it long enough. You know, that kind of woman would be number 1, I mean, at the bottom of the ladder, as it were. Well, men would go for like a 1.5. You know, not quite the 1. That would be a little bit too grim, but 1.5, yes. You know, most men. Although there are some men who would go for, you know, the 1. You know, I mean, well, let's face facts, right? So anyway, my point is, men will sleep with anything that they have the opportunity to sleep with. Women will be choosier, and they will want to sleep only with the best. And this, of course, goes to the issue of evolution and the sort of the fact that women have eggs, which are few and therefore dear, and men who have sperm, which are plentiful and cheap and easy. You see, it's all biology. It's as simple as that. It's not complicated. So women want to mate with the best men, so they go after the best men. And so in this sexual free-for-all, this deregulated sexual marketplace, the top men, the top, say, 20%, they sleep with all the women, all of them. And the bottom 50% of men, they are involuntary celibates because no woman wants to sleep with them. You know, look at this Jeremy Schmidt kid. Yeah, he is not a handsome kid. He's got glasses, he looks dweeby, he's gawky, he's tall. Yeah, he is a fantastic human being. He would be a great father. But in the current sexual marketplace, it's going to be tough for him to find a girlfriend because girls are not going to find him hot. They are going to look at things which are trivial. And that is the problem that we are having with this deregulated sexual marketplace. Valuable men are being discarded by women. They're not paying attention to what is really important long term. They're paying attention to short term. You know, is he hot? Is he cool? Is he popular? Who gives a shit? That's not important, not long term. But what has happened is that in this deregulated sexual marketplace, the people around men and women have rescinded their responsibility of regulating people's sexual preferences. I saw some guy, some guy my age with a grown daughter, you know, 20-something-year-old daughter, and he was actually walking around with a shirt, and I swear to God, it said, "Her body, her choice." No. You know, a young woman who is 20-something is a moron. I know this because I'm 49. I know that young women are stupid. They make stupid decisions. They wind up going off with the guy who's got the tattoos and the leather jacket and the motorcycle. Because I used to be that guy for a brief moment, without the tattoos though. They go off with the guy, they get fucked by him, the guy dumps her because he's got all these other opportunities, and she's left brokenhearted, and so she goes to the next one, and then the next one, and the next one. And this is called vulgarly the cock carousel, and it is an ugly phrase, but it is an ugly phrase that describes a very ugly reality. You see, you have all of these women who get essentially pumped and dumped, fucked by some guy who they consider attractive, then dumped because the guy has all these other sexual opportunities, so she goes to the next one, and the next one after that, and after that. And for women, and let's face facts, and this is a reality, multiple sexual partners leads to serious issues of self-respect, serious issues of depression, serious issues of eating disorders, And let's not even talk about what happens to their ability to pair bond in the future. The fact of the matter is, studies incontrovertibly show that women who have had multiple sexual partners tend to have more failures in their marriage, and it is a direct correlation. You see, women, young women today, are going after the most attractive men, all of them. And what happens with women is that, see, the very bottom, the bottom 20% of women, they probably don't find a guy that they're interested in, right? And the top 80%, yeah, from the very, very top, from the 1 percentile all the way to the 80th percentile, they gravitate to the top 20% of men. And that 20% of men, they basically have 4 women for every 1 man. And that's the reality. You've seen it. You've seen it. You go to a discotheque, you go to some club, and you see like the cool guys surrounded by women. There's so many women, they don't know what to do with them, right? Now we're talking about, 5 girls for every guy, easily. I've seen it. I've been part of those groups, not because I'm so hot or cool. I'm not. Because I happened to hook up with the right guys at the time. Sure, I'm not stupid, If I can't get girls on my own, I'll hook up with the guys who can. That's what I did when I was in my 30s, right? Now, those women, they're all throwing themselves at the top men, at the most attractive men, but they're all superficially attractive, because that's the problem with the deregulation of the sexual marketplace. You have young women who are not paying attention to their parents, who, by the way, have rescinded their responsibility to their daughters. So they are going after whom they consider to be the best catch. And like I said, it's the cool guys, the tattooed guys, the guys with the motorcycle and the leather jacket and all that, stereotypical crap. They don't go after a kid like Jeremy Schmidt. They don't go after the guy who will provide them with long-term happiness. He might not be cool. He might be a little bit boring, perhaps. But he will provide and do things for a woman that the cool guy won't be able to or won't desire to. But that's the problem with the deregulated sexual marketplace. Now, insofar as these 3 conditions are concerned, something very interesting is happening. Now, see, I mentioned the first one was that you want to desire the person that you want, right? There has to be sexual desire between you and the person, the object of your desire. Secondly, both of you have to be on the right side of the age of consent, or rather, you both have to be on the same side of the age of consent. And the third condition is that the other person has to consent to having sex, right? If these 3 conditions are met, any sexual combination is possible. Man with woman, man with man, woman with woman, multiples, however many you want, however many the people agree to. I mean, it's a free-for-all. And we all know this, right? Now, interestingly enough, even these last 3 rules are being undermined, all right? Now, for instance, the first rule, Riley Dennis, or Dennis Riley? Riley Dennis. I always get his name mixed up, because it is him. He is genetically male. He's got genitalia. He can dress up a girl all he wants, but he's a guy. He's a guy who is screwing with the head of his girlfriend, who is a lesbian, and sleeping with a guy. But, Riley Dennis is like that. He wants to screw with people's heads because he's saying that, stuff like, oh, if you don't feel attracted towards trans people or people of different races, then you're sexist or you're transphobic or you're racist or you're some other ist. So it's basically making it so that your sexual desire, your sexual preferences are a matter of political scrutiny. You have to be able, or you have to desire to fuck everybody, which is insane, like your tastes don't count, It's as if I were to say, I really don't care for hamburger, I much prefer fish. And you're like, no, you have to eat hamburger or else you're anti-American. What the fuck? That's insane. But that's essentially what Riley Dennis is saying. But, there is a concerted effort to overturn that first rule. There is a concerted effort insofar as the issue of age of consent, because if you've noticed, there has been a not so subtle push to normalize pedophilia, which is despicable. It is just wrong. It is wrong on all fronts to have adults having sex with children, having desire for children, or normalizing it in any sense of the word. And yet this is what is happening. And here's the weird thing. You see, feminism has traditionally been against the sexualization of children. And I agree, children should not be in any sense of the word regarded as sexual beings or objects of sexual desire. Absolutely not. I find the thought disgusting and despicable and ew, right? And yet if the child is transsexual, gender bending or whatever, then it's okay. There was a recent photo of the actor Liev Schreiber escorting his son to some, I don't know what the hell it was, some costume party, I assume. I have no idea. But the kid was dressed up as Harlequin, one of the characters in some comic book movie, a female. And this boy is a boy. But he was dressed up as this female character in a highly sexualized outfit that was creepy as fuck. What the hell is going on? What the hell is going on is very simple. What the hell is going on is that certain members of the intelligentsia, the bleeding edge of the intelligentsia, if you will, are trying to normalize pedophilia. And when in fact, in Salon.com, they had for a while a writer who said that he was a pedophile, but he had never acted on his desire, but that he felt sexual desire towards children. And he wrote like a big thing, and it was like accepted. It was like, oh, hey, okay. It's okay for us to be normalizing pedophilia. What the hell is going on? Yeah? So they're pushing on the second rule. And the third rule, consent, that is the only one that's sort of like, being maintained at this time. With like California, with this crazy consent law that you basically need like 2 lawyers and a contract before you can like hold somebody's hand. And kissing, well, you better get a judge to have him, observe the proceedings, as it were, if you want to kiss somebody. I mean, that's kind of like crazy, kind of like over-regulation, government regulation of sexual contact, which is crazy, but that's what's going on, you see? And well, it goes to my further point. We are rescinding our responsibilities as a society to regulate the different aspects of our society in favor of some other entity, some distant entity, i.e. government, to regulate those aspects of our society that we ourselves as citizens in our democracies in the West should be regulating. We should not be allowing the government to regulate things. We should be regulating them. We should have the moral self-confidence to say this is good and this is bad. That's one of the problems we're having in our deregulated sexual marketplace. There's a lot more to be said about the deregulated sexual marketplace. I'm going to say more about the deregulated sexual marketplace, excuse me. But I just want to leave you with a final thought. You see, why is it that so many people are so unhappy in their long-term relationships today, even though they have so many choices and so much freedom? And yet people in the past were so much happier with their decisions for long-term partners. Could it be that the regulations that were in place, the social regulations that were in place, with the strong prohibitions and the strong encouragements that the society around people provided, could it be that those prohibitions and encouragements actually aided them in finding the right mate, in finding the right person to share their lives with? Could it be that those social regulations that were strictly enforced ensured that people found the right person for them? The right person who would lead to personal fulfillment and happiness? Because, how come people were so much happier before and they're so miserable now? It's just a thought. But it's a thought worth considering.